This national championship game was kind of like Ohio State's season. Undeniable, absolutely undeniable at times, bumps in the road at others, but in the end, and when it mattered, they proved what was always true. They are the best team in college football.
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
Congratulations to the Ohio State Buckeyes, 2024 national champions, their first national championship since 2014. That was the first year of the 4-team college football playoff. Ohio State kicking things off with a bang in the 12-team era, the first national champions of the 12-team era as well. When you break in a new format, you call up the boys in Columbus, Ohio to get it done and to be hoisting the trophy when all is said and done. Of course, here on Big Ten, Ted, we're going to be talking about these champions, certainly a lot from Columbus, but I want to give the Notre Dame Fighting Irish their flowers, man. Marcus Freeman is a hell of a football coach. This was a team that was just Ohio State was just going up and down the field, and it looked like they were going to run away with this football game. But how about the fight that Notre Dame showed to make this a one-possession game, 31-23, and they had an opportunity to get the ball back with like 2 minutes to go, but of course we knew what happened on that long 3rd and 11 completion. But this is a team that has a really good coach, and this is a team that has a really bright future in South Bend, Indiana. Look, when you looked at Notre Dame, over the last couple of decades, when they get into these big game spots, they more often than not fell flat. And I think Marcus Freeman is really starting to turn things in South Bend, Indiana. You look at winning against the SEC champions in the quarterfinals, beating the Big Ten runner-ups in the semifinals, and then taking the eventual national champions, of course, in the national championship game to the wire with a almost epic comeback. You got to love what's going on in South Bend. Blue and gold, you got a good one. Hold on to them for a very, very long time. That would certainly be my advice as well. All right, let's dive into this game. Why don't we? This game started, I was just giving Notre Dame their flowers, and Notre Dame, in their first drive of the game, deserved a lot of those flowers. They got the football, and they bullied Ohio State. Right? There were some replacement offensive linemen up front for the Irish in this game, and they were running the football effectively. They were mixing in that pass game, and when you look at that run game on the first drive of the game for Notre Dame, it was Riley Leonard. When he got into the end zone, and they were converting 4th downs on that drive, they were converting 3rd downs, especially in short yardage down in the red zone, where Ohio State has been almost unstoppable. The red zone defense has been a brick wall down there, and Notre Dame did convert on a 4th and short in a red zone situation. But, you saw Riley Leonard, man. He kind of looked a little bit banged up. Even on that first drive of the game, they rode him, and they rode him hard. And when I look at that drive, and then I look at the subsequent drives for Ohio State and the subsequent drives for Notre Dame, it was very clear to me Notre Dame came out and they threw that haymaker. Right? This is what they wanted to do. They took almost half of the clock off of the first quarter on that opening drive, and they threw that haymaker. And maybe that was something where Notre Dame was able to connect on a haymaker, and maybe they were able to keep on going and keep on punching, but it was very clear. They threw it. It made a little bit of contact, but it didn't make enough contact because Ohio State was just too talented. And that Ohio State response and what they were able to do offensively, touchdown drive after touchdown drive after touchdown drive, and then what Notre Dame was not able to do on the subsequent drive really told a lot about this game. Notre Dame needed to play this game a lot like they played their first drive, but they were really only able to do it once until later on in the football game. Of course, Ohio State was able to get out to that 31-7 lead that we talked about before as well. The following drives, Ohio State, you talk about that haymaker that made a little bit of contact, but Ohio State stayed on their feet. These subsequent drives where Ohio State, it was jab, after jab after jab, and Notre Dame kind of fell to the floor a little bit before they kind of got back to their feet a little bit later on in this game. I thought once Ohio State really started to put the hammer down, when they started to gain a lot of confidence on the offensive side of the football, that put Notre Dame out of their comfort zone. Notre Dame is a team that is built to play with the lead. This is not a team that is built to really come from behind. This is not a team that's maybe meant to be down by multiple scores and throw their way back into the ball game. But I'm going to give Notre Dame their flowers once again. Sometimes when you're out of your comfort zone as an individual, whether you're an introvert going into a social situation, hey, sometimes, yes, you are out of your comfort zone, but you do what you got to do to present yourself well and be good in that particular situation. I thought that's where Notre Dame was going to do, but are you going to truly excel in that situation? No. And I thought that's what kind of was the story for Notre Dame a little bit later on. Like, when you talk about 28 carries, 53 yards on the ground for the Irish in that game, that is not a recipe for success. Okay, Riley Leonard had 17 rushes of that and 40 yards. You look at Jadarian Price, 3 carries for 13 yards. Jeremiah Love, 4 rushes for 3 yards. Throw every other stat out the window. If you told me that's what's going to happen before this game starts, I said, yeah, Ohio State is going to be hoisting that trophy when all is said and done. Don't show me anything else. If Ohio State is able to do that with their run defense, they're going to have a good time, certainly, as well. I think as this game started to go on and as Ohio State really started to get a lot more confidence, I think one thing that they did to be able to really demoralize Notre Dame's defense was converting third downs, man. They kept that Notre Dame defense on the field, and they kept coming up big in these clutch situations. Marcus Freeman said it during the broadcast, man, we just can't get off the field on third down. But big credit to Ryan Day, Chip Kelly, Will Howard, and this entire offense coming up big in those situations to keep the drives moving and to really, and that not only obviously keeps you on the field, you get a little bit more tired on the football field at that point, but it's kind of between the ears. It's a little bit mental. It kind of demoralizes you a little bit. Ohio State was 7 for 7 on third downs before an overthrow on a third down with 7:58 left in the third quarter. So that tells, I think, a lot of the story, certainly, over there as well. I want to talk about that last 3rd and 11, because that was the throw of Will Howard's life, Will Howard's year, whatever you want to call it. That's the throw that we don't know how else in an alternate universe how it would have gone if he didn't make that throw, but that's a throw that certainly may have won Ohio State a national championship. So let's kind of break that play down a little bit. A little bit of predictable play calling early on in that sequence for the Buckeyes. But Notre Dame brings extra pressure. I can't remember if it was they brought 6 guys, 7 guys. I'm not sure exactly how many guys they brought, but they brought the blitz, and they go man coverage. That is not the call I certainly would have made. I tip my cap to Al Golden for being aggressive into that situation, but, man, you got one-on-one, and you look what happened. Man coverage, Jeremiah Smith, this is the stuff that was going to happen. Like, throughout, it was not only this play, but really throughout this game, Ohio State did a great job of taking what Notre Dame was willing to give them. Okay? When it was zone coverage, they would, when Notre Dame was playing zone coverage on the back end, they would kind of take things in front of them, and they'd take 6 or 7 chunk yardage plays. You get man coverage, and that's where maybe you can make some of these plays over the top, like Jeremiah Smith was able to do late in that game to be able to clinch this victory for the Ohio State Buckeyes in the national championship. But that kind of goes back to telling the story where Notre Dame couldn't get key third down stops when they absolutely needed. The man who made that throw, Will Howard. Man, he's really been the heartbeat of this Ohio State offense. You might be able to say the team. Jack Sawyer has been a pretty big heartbeat and a pretty big leader on the defensive side of the football as well for Ohio State. Like, this was kind of a Will Howard game. He was extremely efficient throwing the football. He didn't make a lot of bad decisions. Like, you look at the first half for Will, 14 of 15, 144. and 2 touchdowns. The thing about Will Howard was, and you kind of rewind all the way back to August, when you saw what Will Howard put on tape at Kansas State and how good he was in a QB run game, you really thought, and I talked about this last summer, hey, they're going to have a 3-headed monster. But Chip really didn't call a lot of design QB run for Will Howard throughout the season. Now, when you have Quinshon Judkins, when you have Trevion Henderson in the backfield, that might be a good reason why. But this was kind of the game where that design QB run and that threat of Will Howard really came out to play. He led Ohio State in rushing attempts. He ran the ball 16 times for 57 yards. He ended up with a stat line throwing 17 to 21, 231, and those 2 touchdowns that I talked about as well. Will Howard had some really key runs, bouncing it to the outside. We talk about converting those third downs. Those were some key third downs that he was able to convert with his legs to be able to keep the chains moving, keep the Ohio State offense on the field, and keep the Notre Dame defense on the field as well. And then Ohio State just had a great day rushing the football because Chip Kelly and this Ohio State offense was able to look at what was happening with Notre Dame defensively and what they were able to have success with, and that was running the football. 41 carries, 214 yards, and 2 touchdowns as a team. Those 2 touchdowns belong to Mr. Quinshon Judkins. He certainly had himself a hell of a game. 11 carries, 100 yards, and those pair of scores that I certainly talked about as well. All right, so here's where we're going to finish our last reaction of the college football season. And this was an absolutely legendary run for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Look, I don't know what's going to happen in the coming years. I don't know what's going to happen in 26, 27, 28, 29. I don't know if we're going to have runs like this again with a team like this where your backs are against the wall and then they reel off all of these consecutive victories to win a national championship. But man, what an absolute joy it was to watch this playoff run for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Man, listen to what I said. Listen to what other people said about the Ohio State team following that loss to Michigan. Okay, maybe I'll save you a click a little bit. They weren't saying great things. They weren't saying great things about this Ohio State team. They weren't saying great things about Ryan Day. Their backs were against the biggest wall that there was. And even within the Ohio State fan base, even when they were in the college football playoff, even when they were hosting a college football playoff game in game 1, this was a little bit of an unknown. How were the Ohio State Buckeyes going to respond after that loss to Michigan? You have got to give a ton of credit. I know there's been some takes out there. How good of a coach really is Ryan Day? Of course, there was that comment, hey, born on third base, thinks he hit a triple, and that's really taken on a life of its own also as well. But I think this run really proves that Ryan Day, there is absolutely no doubt, maybe even for some of the naysayers out there, he is one of the best head coaches in college football, and now he's got that national championship in his back pocket to certainly prove it. He was able to rally the troops at that point in time, and the senior leadership was able to rally at that point in time and say, hey, why'd we come back? Why did we come back? To win a national championship. That goal is still on the table. Let's approach this 4-game season completely different. And they look completely different in those first 2 playoff games, in that rout against Tennessee, and routing maybe the second best team in college football when all was said and done in the Oregon Ducks. And you saw what they did in the Rose Bowl, and then beating Texas, and then beating Notre Dame, and going on this all-time run. Like I said, I don't know what we're going to get in the future. But man, this whole story and the story that was weaved throughout the season, everybody talks about the $20 million roster. But let this maybe set a little bit of a precedent. Winning a national championship is going to be really hard, even when you have a roster as talented as Ohio State's roster was. That's the era that we currently live in college football. This is not a thing where you go 12-0 and now we just got to win a couple more games to win a national championship. No, you got to be able to reset. You got to be able to remain focused to keep on going down your path. Like, look at what happened to Oregon this year. 13-0 Big Ten champions, and then they weren't able to adapt and they weren't able to be prepared for that next season, and you saw what happened with them. Ohio State, on the other hand, they were able to adjust. They were able to really get things going in the right direction, be a little bit different, and now they're celebrating a national championship when all is said and done. What a year. What a season it was in the Big Ten. Boy, as if this Michigan-Ohio State rivalry needed more juice, the last two national champions come from this rivalry. Of course, the 23 Wolverines, and now these 2024 Ohio State Buckeyes. Leave all of your thoughts on this game in the comments below. Congratulations to the Scarlet and Gray on the national championship. It's a good day to be a Buckeye, and it's a good day to be in the Big Ten. I'm Big Ten Ted. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.